Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali, and today I'd like to talk about human consciousness. So, what do we understand by consciousness, and is it one thing, or does it lie on a spectrum? Now, when we talk of consciousness, consciousness covers a lot of aspects. Medically, it implies that we are alive, that our body is alive, while through the other lens, it means being aware. It means being in tune with our senses to become more sensible and sensitive, or to become sensitively sensible. So, then what is human consciousness? What does it mean to be alive as a human and to be aware as a human? And here's my personal take in understanding and addressing that. So, let's take the example of two huge birds that are predators, one being an eagle and the other being a vulture, one being a solitary species while the other being a social species. And so, quite naturally, given those parameters, these two big birds encapsulate two different worlds, or at least two different viewpoints of the same world. So, while eagle flies really high, it flies alone. It hunts alone. And on the other hand, the vulture is a social species. It doesn't necessarily fly as high as the eagle, but it flies in a group. It works in a team. While one may be thought of as a lone leader and a lone soldier that paves its own path, the other works in a team. The other, that is the vulture, can have the possibility of the support of the group. It can have the possibility of relying on support from someone else. The vulture can lean on support from others. And so, in a way, since the vulture works in a group dynamics, it necessarily has to cultivate some degree of social intelligence, some degree of relational intelligence. While on the other hand, the vulture may not necessarily need that. On one hand, while the eagle might be responsible only for its solo self, solitary self, while its duties might only be entrusted towards its solo solitary self. The understanding of responsibilities and duties within a social group in which the vultures live and survive might be very different. The understanding of responsibilities and duties might then not just become a solo solitary proposition, but it might also be towards the group as well. And in a way, it's implicit of both the solo and the social responsibilities. It's both indicative of the personal and the interpersonal duties. While eagle is its own leader without a follower, the vulture, being a social species, needs a leader who's backed by followers, who can rely on the backing of its followers. While the aspects like selfishness and selflessness might not necessarily exist in the dictionary of an eagle, the understanding of the concepts of selflessness and selfishness might completely change in a social parameter. A person who behaves like an eagle in a social parameter might be considered as a very selfish person, might also be considered as a self-centered person who cares about nobody else but its own flight, who's not concerned about anybody else. And thereby the eagle might not have the concept of sharing and caring, while as the vultures might have a different concept of sharing is caring. On one hand, while the eagle doesn't live in a group, in a social construct, its understanding of honesty, of trust, and of loyalty might be directed towards its solo, solitary self. And on the other hand, since vultures live and survive in social networks, in a social setting. Their understanding of honesty, trust, and loyalty might depend on the social group dynamics and its context, which invariably also implies that the concept of mistrust, of dishonesty, and of disloyalty might also exist in a group setting, might also exist within the social dynamics, which in my personal understanding may not necessarily exist within the solo solitary species. Humans, to a degree, are also social species. Would there be a certain amount of hypocrisy prevalent amongst the social creatures? And would hypocrisy of any kind be seen in eagles who are solo solitary creatures? While the attachment styles of the vultures within the group dynamics can range from secure to insecure, from secure, which means from healthy independency to healthy interdependency, or insecure attachment, which can come across as dismissive avoidant, as anxiously attached, or as disorganized attachment. The eagle, on the other hand, might come across as securely attached or as being hyper independent, essentially implying those who have difficulty trusting, who have difficulty stating their needs and their wants, who even might have difficulty negotiating boundaries. And thereby the concept of independence and interdependence changes from one species to the other, changes from one bird to the other, though both of them are predators. While the vulture, being a group species, may experience groupism, favoritism, group conflicts, group politics, the eagle, being a solo solitary species, will not have to experience any of that. Since the eagle does not live in a group, quite naturally, it does not have to face conflicting viewpoints or different viewpoints within the group itself. And quite naturally, it has more clarity and more focus, both literally and metaphorically, which to a degree also narrows down its choices in life. On the other hand, since vultures live in a group, since they survive in a social community, since they are a social species, quite naturally, just like humans, every individual might have a different point of view, which may give birth to both conflicting and interesting points of view, which may lead to lesser clarity and lesser focus, and more confusion because of more number of choices, more number of viewpoints, which may call in for many brainstorming sessions, just like at times humans engage in. And to put it in Hindi, one species will have vicharon ka adan pradan, while the other species will not necessarily have any understanding of vicharon ka adan pradan. Metaphorically, while the vultures may have 360-degree viewpoint by exchange of various ideas and viewpoints, the eagle metaphorically has a 360-degree vision through a completely different lens, through a lens that just might be a little more objective, through a lens that might be from the top and thereby a little detached, a little distant, and a little aloof. While on one hand, the vultures, being a group species and also being scavengers, are looked upon as opportunists, waiting to pounce and prey on a dead species or on a weaker species. The eagles, who are the solo solitary species, who are not scavengers, aren't looked upon as the opportunists by the world. And in my understanding, human is the only species to experience both of these worlds, one of the social species and one of the solitary species as well. Humans are the only species endowed with the choice to choose from this wide spectrum, to choose all of the aspects with discernment, with the wide array of this buffet. That is why, in my understanding, we've always had stories that have compared the solitary, and the social species. Be it the story of the ants and the grasshopper, be it the comparison between the eagle and the vultures, or be it the comparison between the rabbit and the tortoise. We are the only species to get as much aware, to get as much conscious about experiencing life through both of these spectrums. And at times, the choice and the responsibility with regards to being a human can feel blissful. And at times, the same freedom and the same responsibility with regards to this choice can also feel overwhelming. And yet, since this choice, in my understanding, has been given to none other, the more we get aware of the choices and thereby the consequences that comes with those choices becomes equally imperative. So let's try and reflect on both of those spectrums to become more aware of ourselves, to become a little more conscious of ourselves, to even become aware of what the self entails when we talk of the self. Let's do that for ourselves, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And guys, if you do like the contextual content of these videos, please do like, share, and subscribe.